So the United Auto Workers Union went on strike today because they want more than a 40% pay boost. I'll get to the lack of basic economic understanding behind these demands in just a sec, but I want to break down the bigger picture of unions. All right, a lot of you probably remember I was the weekend host here for a little over 2 years. Well, during the week, I actually had a 9 to 5. I was a project manager and superintendent for a construction management company, particularly in infrastructure. I dealt almost exclusively with unions, so when I tell you I know about these things and how they go, I do. Now, personally, I think unions have completely overstayed their welcome in the workforce today, and they do more harm than good. Maybe in the days of like Andrew Carnegie, when workers were put through really horrible conditions, they were needed, but they've become bloated bullies that cost you and I billions of dollars a year. Here's how it works, by the way. They'll dispute this, but unions donate to Democrats. Democrats then pass laws that force union contracts or prevailing wage laws onto those projects. Some are state-funded, some are private sector, like the ones in the UAW. The auto companies, UPS, whatever, you pick one. All right, some states have laws that also force employees to pay union dues. Michigan's one of them. This gives unions almost exclusive control over that labor section. That's how they get it done, including the ability to shut down work unless you pay their employees, the union employees, what they think they deserve. Now, here's how unions cost you more money. Unions are essentially organized mobs. They use collective bargaining rights to muscle employers into paying their employees more money, which is then passed off to you and I, either through more taxes if they're municipal projects or higher costs for goods. This is not up for debate. This is playing out right now. The UAW is holding the big three auto companies, Ford, GM, and Stellantis. They absorbed Chrysler recently. They're holding them hostage in exchange for some pretty crazy demands. For instance, workers are currently structured in a 401k style retirement program, but the union wants to go back to a pension system. All right. This is like massive proof that these unions do not understand basic economics, considering literally every state in America is trying to figure out a way to get out of the pension system because it's nearly bankrupting them. But this union, diving right back in. Other demands include, get this, a 32-hour work week. Are you kidding me? That's a 4-day work week. They also want guaranteed cost of living adjustments and an immediate 20% pay raise. Wouldn't that be nice? Tell my boss, hey, I'd like 20 more percent. He told me to pound sand. They also want 4 more additional raises of 5% each year, which is altogether would increase the pay by 46% over a 4-year term. That's crazy. I guess my question is, do these auto companies have any guarantees from the union that the same employees will be immediately 20% more efficient? 5% more efficient every year after that? Of course not. This is going to bankrupt the auto industry. And then none of these 150,000 striking employees will have any jobs. Or they'll just outsource everything to Mexico, like actually they were going to do, which, by the way, Trump stopped them from doing. This, again, Econ 101. There's no money tree in the private sector. It's got to come from somewhere. Ford posted a 90% profit loss last year, mostly in part because they're being mandated to produce these electric vehicles that don't sell. Do those facts matter to the union? No, of course not. The UAW boss, Shawn Fain, came out and said, record profits mean record contracts. But they're in record lows right now. So should workers share that loss too? Oh, no. He only wants workers to have the upside. You see how unreasonable this all is? The UAW cites that the CEO of Ford made $28 million last year. Okay, fair enough. He's the CEO. He generated a lot of wealth too. But let's say we took the salary, all of it, take it all, pay the CEO $0, and divide the $28 million by 150,000 striking workers. Comes out to about $187 each worker. Okay, the average auto worker makes 60 grand a year. That doesn't even get you close to a 1% raise. Try again. And oh, by the way, if high salaries are so abhorrent, why was the former UAW president, Gary Jones, paid $340,000 a year right before he was sentenced to 28 months in jail for embezzling more than $1 million in the same union funds, by the way? You see why I don't like these unions? Without looking at the exact collective bargaining agreement, we are approximating, based on comparable labor agreements I was actually able to review today, The average auto worker takes home about 30 bucks an hour, maybe a little bit less. Let's use Ford as an example here. So if Ford pays an employee $30 an hour, this comes to around $62,000 per year, just from a payroll perspective. That's what they take home before taxes. Ford additionally, though, has to pay the union on top of that for each employee. This covers things like their pensions or their 401k thing that they have, medical coverage, vacations, whatever. This number checks in at about equal to the cost of the payroll to the employee, about 50-50. So call it another 62 grand a year. And of course, the government has to get theirs too. This comes in the form of about 30% in employee taxes and fees paid by Ford. This is not including what you pay out of your paycheck. This money goes towards Medicaid, Social Security, other federal taxes, some state taxes, whatever. That 30% of the employee's daily gross or annual gross is 72 bucks a day, a little over $18,000 a year. So in total, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. A union employee taking home $62,000 a year before taxes actually costs, in this case, Ford, the employer, more than 140 grand a year per employee. And you want to add 40% to that? Tally all this up across the auto industry, it's an $8.5 billion a year increase just in payroll. You know, there was once a guy who dealt with a union strike. He went by the name Ronald Reagan. You know how he dealt with it?
And if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated. End of statement.
Well, interestingly enough, Ford kind of got on that bandwagon. They actually just hit the airwaves, notified allegedly 600 staff members in Michigan not to report to work, claiming layoff is a consequence of the strike. Sorry, not sorry. They didn't say the sorry part, but the union is set to cost our economy over $5 billion of lost income during this strike. They don't care. This union has failed to understand that cars are already at record high costs for consumers. This will make them cost more because Ford or GM or whatever can't absorb this cost. They're going to pass it on to consumers, us, you and I. So while this union thinks it's fighting for its workers, it's actually costing all Americans more money. This could bankrupt the three major automakers in America, or, like I said, cause them to move their jobs to another country. Either way, it's a really dangerous game to play with a fragile economy that we have right now.